Outsider art is perhaps a catch-all term in ways. It encompasses a lot of different types of art makers, but I tend to think of it as, art that was created by people who weren't working within an artistic establishment, who most of the time didn't have any formal training, who were certainly influenced by pop culture and the world around them, but who weren't directly influenced perhaps by other mainstream artists. These folks have developed a very important reputation in the art world for exploring, in many cases, a world that wasn't really documented. In the US, the material really did stem from a folk art tradition. You have a lot of interest in the 1960s, 1970s in discovering contemporary folk art. And then that sort of bridged its way into the idea of outsider art as we have it in the US. And I have two great pieces by William Edmondson right next to me. He is possibly my favorite artist of all time. He spent the majority of his life doing odd jobs and then working at the Women's Hospital in Nashville just as a janitor. After he lost his job there, relatively late in life, he decided that he was going to become a tombstone carver. And after a while, he started carving what he called his garden ornaments, which are these pieces. You look at the very architectural carving that he created here. This tail is bifurcated in a way that makes the negative space so interesting. You look at the different textures here, you see he was really, really very skilled, and he was able to bring it to life in a way that is incredibly modern. He was working in the 1930s, and he was actually the first African-American man to have a solo exhibition at the MoMA. Bill Traylor lived most of his life on a plantation and in his old age moved to Montgomery, Alabama, and he was really suffering from ill health and so found it very hard to find a job and instead spent a lot of his time sitting on a doorstep in a very vibrant African-American part of the city, and he began to draw. He's known for creating abstract constructions, but what he's really known for are his animated figures. These sort of triangular shapes and other sort of quadrilaterals that sort of emerge create this oscillation between the background and the foreground of these works that is truly very, very sophisticated. With self-taught and outsider art, it's often a very male-dominated field, but I think that Sister Gertrude Morgan is a great example of an outstanding female self-taught artist. She lived in New Orleans, where she worked as a street preacher. Her works are all religious, and what I think is so great about this work is you have this very sophisticated composition. You have these great patches of yellow and orange, but then you have this hot pink that runs through and draws your eye across the page, this green that sort of stems out like veins from the center and the bottom of the piece. This really is a wonderful piece by her because it does show her incredible sophistication with color as well as her religious message. Thornton Dial was a very political person. And by the time he died earlier this year, he had really pushed the envelope on a lot of things. Here you're starting to see that. You think about how this fits within his legacy of work, where it's all about struggle. For him, rope is an imagery of struggle. He uses towels to talk about domesticity. Metal for him is labor, because that's what his job was. This is really a piece that speaks to his life and where he's from and who he is and why he is the way he is. I think that now that we live in an increasingly global world, the idea of an artist being removed from society just doesn't exist so much anymore. But what I am seeing is a movement towards art that just truly can't be taught. But there is this thriving and constantly evolving sense of where this field is going to go.